Amen. Be seated. So this morning we are at part of the Ten Commandments. We've got 4 of them that we're going to be looking at this morning. And they come in pretty quick succession. Don't kill, don't commit adultery, don't steal, and don't lie. Or as I like to think of this group of them in there, this is the Bible thumping section of the Ten Commandments. Because they're short, they're punctuated, and they are seemingly self-evident that, well, of course we know what these mean. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can handle these. We can take each of them on their own and go separately with them, and quite frankly, it would take me at least one Sunday, if not 2 or 3 per each of these to really get into them. So instead, we're going to take them all as one group. Because I think if we're going to do them separately, we'd be better off in a Bible study as opposed to trying to do this on Sunday morning. Because if any of you have ever had a high school English teacher, and Cheryl could probably tell you this, or you've had a college professor, they will tell you writing a shorter paper is far harder than writing a longer one. Because when you do that, things get complicated. Because these are very short commandments, and we think that they are very self-evident, but anytime you have something that is very short like this, it is full of all sorts of assumptions. Things that whoever wrote it thinks, well, they're going to know this, so I don't need to put that in there. And the shorter that is, the more things that they assume that you already know. Short doesn't mean easy. And these are a good example of this. Take, for example, the first one, don't kill. We think, well, that's certainly easy enough and self-explanatory, except one of the very next things that happens in Exodus, and I think even in Deuteronomy, is that God says, go out and kill this group of people. And you're sitting there going, wait a minute, how is this supposed to work? And if you start looking at all of the work and the research that's been done over the years on this commandment, it quickly devolves into an issue of semantics. People, they make huge distinctions between whether was someone killed or were they murdered. And normally I'm a big fan of semantics because I'm that kind of nerd and I think it's a lot of fun to go into what all the words are doing. This is one of those times it's like, y'all are splitting way too many hairs in this one. But that's where they go. In order to try and understand it, we devolve into that sort of place. We go to the next one, you would say, don't commit adultery. Like, well, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Except we remember back when this commandment was written that the role of women was very different than it is now. In fact, where the role of women today is much different than it has been throughout all of human history. Because back in that time, women were considered property, and so adultery was something that was very different than what we think now. And so we've really got to kind of flesh that out some more and say, what are we talking about here when we say this? Then we get to the commandment that says, don't lie. Again, you would think, well, that's simple, and that is easy enough. You just always tell the truth, except that you know and I know that society functions on a succession of little white lies. Things that we say that keep us from doing unnecessary harm, that have no other real impact beyond that just kind of keeps things flowing nicely. The stereotypical one of these things is, for men at least, is when women say, tell me about what this dress does to me, right? So we know that there's more to unpack with that. And then there's the last one. Oh, I skipped one in there. I skipped the third one in there. Don't steal. Again, you think, well, that is pretty self-evident. I remember when I was the kids' age, when they were up here today, I remember learning these commandments. And the example that was always given, it's like, you don't walk into a grocery store and steal a candy bar. Like, that's just what you don't do. And that is perfectly age appropriate for kids when they are that age to do that. The trouble is that we have a hard time taking that commandment beyond that level of don't steal the candy bar from the grocery store. At about 40, almost 41 years old, I'm pretty good at that one, no matter how much that giant-sized Kit Kat is staring me in the face, or the Harpo gummy bears on the wall next to at Walmart. I do have a little bit of a sweet tooth, but I can generally refrain myself from doing that. We could spend a lot of time talking about each of these commandments. And in fact, it would be good for us to do that at some point in time. But for this morning, we're going to focus on one of the big themes that runs through all 4 of these. And that is, don't take what isn't yours. Don't take someone's life. Don't take their covenant they've made with someone else. Don't take their possessions. And don't take their truth. life, covenant, possessions, and truth. All four of those words are carefully chosen there for the things that we are told not to take from others. And we can see this begin to play itself out as we look at this story of the woman who was caught in adultery. We know how the story goes. We just read it. We see all the words there, but sometimes it helps to kind of go back and kind of review that outline of how things happen, because there are some important parts of this story that have taken place. It starts off with Jesus coming down off of the Mount of Olives, and he's going into the temple, and he sits down and teaches. Now, to kind of see what was going on in there, the temple always had a large crowd of people. Many were just coming from out of town to see what was going on, others that were coming there to learn. If you've ever been to someplace like the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., where there are always crowds of people gathered around, there's always tour groups of people where there's someone in the center that's teaching a small group of folks that are there, that's what that looks like. And in fact, we experienced this a couple of years ago at the Lincoln Memorial. You can be there at 11 o'clock at night, and there are still going to be a crowd of people that are there at the Lincoln Memorial. That's what the temple looked like. And so Jesus is walking into the middle of this. He's got kind of like his own tour group that's down there, and they are, and he's teaching, and they're learning, and this group of religious, legal experts and Pharisees come up to him, and they're like, I can almost see them like dragging this woman along, saying, "Here is this woman who has been caught in adultery." They say, "Teacher, what should we do? Moses told us we should stone women like this." And they're just waiting to see how Jesus is going to respond. And we're told, and everyone knows this, if they have seen the interaction between these folks at all, knows that they are testing him to see what Jesus is going to say. Now you would think at some point they get smart enough to realize they aren't ever going to win this battle with him, but they're trying it really hard. And so they stop him and they say, and so he kind of looks at him and he goes down, he starts writing something out on the ground. They don't particularly care for this, so they keep pestering him with questions, asking more things. And Jesus stops, he looks up at him, and he says, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone." And then he goes back down to writing stuff on the ground. And then this crazy thing happens. One by one, starting with the elders that were there, they just kind of begin to melt away from this little gathering. Until eventually Jesus looks up and here's all the crowd all around him, but it's like, this is the part of the movie where you can see the crowd around him, but it's all blurred out in the background, and standing there kind of in the center is Jesus and this woman. And Jesus looks at her and he says, "Where'd your accusers go? Is there anyone here that is going to condemn you?" And she says, "No one, sir." And Jesus replies back to her and he says, "Neither do I. Go now and sin no more." Here's the thing about this story. The accusers were absolutely 100% correct, and according to what Moses had said. Like they were bringing this woman here, according to the law, this was 100% exactly what should have happened, what should have taken place when they brought her to him, because that's just the way things were. That's the way that they did things, but they didn't do it. And it feels really shameful. Not on the woman's part, but on the part of the accusers. It feels really shameful because of what they did in this moment. It feels really shameful because of how they left the situation. Go back to verses 8 and 9. Bending down again, Jesus wrote on the ground. Those who heard him went away one by one. Beginning with the elders, finally only Jesus and the woman were left in the middle of the crowd. We don't know what Jesus was writing on the ground. There is a ton of speculation about what Jesus wrote on the ground. Everything from he was just kind of recounting the law and other things, just kind of listing that stuff out to, and this is where, if y'all ever want to meet real gossips, go talk to preachers, because we love our gossip or information sharing more than most people do. And so this is what I really want to know what he was writing down there, because the speculation is that Jesus was just listing out all of the things that all of those accusers had done that would bring them up to the same place where this woman was. That's part of the speculation. But we don't know what Jesus wrote there. We don't know what it was that he was writing, but we do know that it was powerful enough that they left in shame. And we hear the one thing that he says in the middle of this. He says to him, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone." And those are the two pieces of that we have that changes the entirety of what's going on. The shame of the accusers in this moment becomes palpable. And it happens because of what they had been taking and what they were taking and what they were about to take. Not just presumably from this woman, but from so many others that they had come across. In this case, they were getting ready to take someone's life. If not literally, they were going to take that life metaphorically, because they would have been just as well off as just giving her a scarlet A to wear from that point on for the rest of her life, because her life as she knew it would have been over. She was caught in the act, but where was the guy? There's one thing that Jesus is really good at in the Gospels, is that he makes sure he holds both parts of this accountable. He's good at doing that, and we're only given one person in here. Where's the other person that would have been involved? And while they weren't stealing an object from her, they were robbing her of her dignity and of her identity as a person. With what they were doing, if she were going to continue living after this moment, they were taking any ability she would have had to be able to make a living for herself, to support herself, because she always would have been known as that woman. And so they were taking all of that from her also. And I wonder where the truth was in all of this. Again, we only have one person that's brought in. And so I wonder what truth they are taking from her and the situation. But more importantly, I wonder what truth are they hiding? I think it's the things they were hiding that Jesus was probably writing out on the ground for everyone to see. Because we've all heard the saying, and it shows itself to be true time and time again, that those who are yelling the loudest are oftentimes the ones who are the most guilty. And so we wonder, I wonder, what truth were they stealing from her? Jesus, on the other hand, does something different. Jesus is restoring her life. He forgives her of her adultery, which gives her back her dignity and identity, and exposes the lie for what it was when all of the men that had brought her there disappeared. And we can presume, because we have the story recorded in Scripture, that she went from there and she didn't ever do it again. She did just as Jesus said. The greatest sinner in this story isn't actually the woman, but it's the men who had come around to try and test Jesus. And it's because of the things that they were taking from her. And we see this all the time throughout the Gospels with these folks, that what kept getting them into trouble with Jesus was all of the things they kept trying to take from the people that were coming to listen to him teach, or the others that they were trying to keep Jesus from healing, or any of the other things. They were always taking it from others. And the trouble was that to get what they wanted, what they thought was important in all of this, we see them time and time again breaking the same commandments that they were called to uphold. Jesus is teaching them something different, that you can hold to the commandments, but you can also still show grace. But that is going to affect something in you, which means that we're going to see things very differently from that point going forward. So let's put all these things together. We're reminded first of what it is that the commandments do. That the commandments aren't meant to be displayed in public places and say, everyone must follow these are the rules to live by, because they don't make sense outside of a community of faith. Because they are meant to bring us together as a community of faith, not as rules so that if we break them, and then we know that we must be punished for them, but they're ways of living so that when we break them, because God knew that we were going to break them, we had been breaking commandments from the very beginning in the Garden of Eden. God was not going to be surprised when we broke these. So that when we broke them, we knew, one, what it was that we had done so that we could confess well, so that then we could be forgiven, and then we could find reconciliation, and the community can be made stronger. So we see this all through Israel's history, that when they were following and doing well, they were a community that did those things, and they became stronger for it. That when they were at their worst, they had forgotten all of that. That's what makes these commandments hard, though, is because they're meant to bring us together. Help us to learn and to grow and to overcome when things go wrong. But remember at the start of this when I said short doesn't mean easy. In fact, I kind of previewed this a little bit last week in talking about our previous commandment. I said this. Important to note in here is that there's a lot more words in this commandment than we often use. And in fact, when you stop to look at it, there's more words in that commandment than come in the next several commandments that come after it. I have to admit, I just kind of want to put myself up on TV again. I think this is the very definition of talking to yourself. But I said it last week. We had all of those words in the commandments to honor thy father and thy mother. And there were way more words in there than there were in the next 4 commandments combined. Short doesn't mean easy. Short generally means it's full of all sorts of assumptions. All sorts of things that we assume that everyone is going to know, so we don't need to put that many words to it because we're going to know what that is, but we don't always know that. And things have changed so much from the time when those commandments were written, much less from the time when Jesus was with his disciples, that we have to begin to look at them differently and see how do they impact us where we are today. And that's why I like the idea of what are we taking from someone else when that happens. And not just from someone else, but oftentimes, what are we taking from ourselves? Because we can be our own worst judges a lot of time also. And so we look at these big 4 broad categories. First, are we taking someone's life, their real life or their metaphorical life? They may still go on living after that, but have we taken their ability to actually live? Have we taken the covenant or the relationship that they have made with someone else? And that doesn't just mean spouses either. This can apply in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different places. It doesn't just stay inside of a marriage. Have we taken their possessions? Not just simple as a candy bar, but their physical, spiritual, or mental possessions. Have we taken those things? Have we taken someone's truth? Their identity or their dignity. These are the things that are a lot harder to talk about. Because so often we teach our kids what these things are, but then we forget to go back and revisit them when we get older. And that we need to go back and revisit them because we have changed as we get older. I hope that I never lose my sweet tooth for fruit snacks. But that's the 12-year-old in me that still likes to come out. But we do get older and we do change, and we need to go back and learn and to relearn. And it feels like that can be really hard and that can be really complicated, except that we see Jesus give us the example of how to do this. This is one of the things that Jesus does so well, is he tries to bring all of this together so that we don't make it harder on ourselves, and we see him teaching the accusers who don't really stick around for the lesson, but especially the woman and so many others, how to make this work. And the first thing he says is, don't cast the first stone. But instead, he's telling us, look down and see what I'm writing. Look down and see what it is that I am trying to tell you. Because he tells the woman, I'm not here to judge you, I'm here to help you do better. I'm here to help you figure this out so you don't do these things again, so you become more than what you were before. We look first to see what is it that Jesus is writing down there. The goal is not to cast the first stone, but to look first and follow him. Our world can be a far more complicated place than just a few words written on a page or inscribed in big blocks of stone can give the impression. But Jesus shows us how we can both show compassion, but still have accountability. Still hold each other and ourselves accountable to the guidance that he gives, to the commandments that he gives, that God gives to us. We can still do that, but it requires more reflection, and it requires remembering the example that Jesus sets for us. Let us be people who look first to see what Jesus is saying. Whether he's writing it on the ground, whether he is teaching us more directly, wherever it is that it comes from, let us first be those people before we ever cast that first stone. Let us be the people who can do that And by doing that, can share that with others who can grow and who can overcome the things that have happened to them or that they have done, so that we can find that better place, that place where God wants us to be. Let us go and let us do all of this in Christ's name. Amen.